I want to cast LCK for like the next 4 years, three
Hmm.
to 4 years. Hopefully that works.
Well, I would assume it would.
I
I
hope
mean,
so. I don't think I'm getting fired, so I
hmm.
think we should be all right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. It is me, Valdes, bringing you WCG Close-up, Episode 11. And today, I have a very special guest. It is my co-caster and good friend, Chronicler, Maurits Meeusen. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
Yeah, really good. It's really nice after what was a very tumultuous first summer season to have some time off. It was quite the experience. Summer was a lot more intense than spring,
Hmm.
and I also took Korean classes. But like even without that, it would have been a lot more
Yeah.
of an experience, I think, and took a lot more energy.
It was your first year as an LCK caster, and obviously some big changes were made in your life. But how do you feel about your first year, and what were some of the most memorable moments that you felt over the course of this year?
I think that when it came to like the professional changes, the scope with which everything is done is so different than what I'm used to. Because I was a freelance caster in the ERL scene, right?
Hmm.
And that is outside of the LEC, like as high as you can get in Europe. So that in of itself was already really really cool. But then compared to the LCK, it's just and LCK is a secondary broadcast, right? Like
Uh huh.
compared to like the LEC and the LCS, those guys have even more resources, but it's so much more of a everything is taken care of, and you get way more support, and you get riders, and you get CGs, and you get all these things that um, you don't really get when you're a caster on a lower level. And like I
Yeah.
started with literal bedroom casts,
Yeah.
like a lot of them, and attic casts, and like cast with like 3 viewers for like years. So it's been
Yeah.
kind of crazy going from that to the summer final, which I think was literally the most watched final for
Yeah.
any esports event in the world, which was pretty
It's
nuts.
kind of insane
Yeah,
when you
it's
think
like
about it. Yeah.
what? And of course, like not all these viewers were on the English stream, but still being part of that is just mind blowing.
Yeah, it is really crazy, and it's funny that you mentioned kind of the build up as a caster, and you went from your bedroom into ERLs into now
Yeah.
LCK. So I feel like as a relatively new caster in the LCK, at least you're kind of coming onto the scene now, casting a major region, and I feel like a lot of people would be interested as well about your origin story, kind of what exactly made you get into casting, and why, and like how exactly did you make it all this way?
Yeah, so I started casting as a hobby while I was still studying in university. And I was done with my degree in 2018, and I really wanted to try and do more. Like try and like I want to see if I can go freelance for a little bit and see if this casting thing works out. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay as well. If it doesn't, then I will just go and be a lawyer, which I don't think I would have been very good at. I'm very happy that this worked out.
I agree.
I just didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, you're definitely right there. I'm not really the legal type.
same.
Yeah, but I would have never in my wildest dreams expected to actually get to LCK, because that was something that I'd been saying for years. Because I visited Korea before in 2015
Hmm.
during my bachelor's. So I went to Yonsei to visit law school there for like a semester, and it was really really cool. And one of the main reasons was because I wanted to see GSL, and I wanted to see the LCK.
Yeah.
I didn't tell my uni that, of course.
Uh-huh.
I told them I was really interested in, and that part was true as well, in Korean culture, and like experiencing a completely new environment, and all those parts were still amazing, and I was very happy I got to do that.
Hmm.
But it was also because of me wanting to really badly go and see the players and see the casters and whatnot. And it is still after a year, even it's still very unreal to me, because it felt for me like I did the ERLs, so the Benelux, so
Yeah.
Netherlands and Belgium ERLs, which are great, and I loved working on them. Like the people that work on them are amazing, but it's very small scale, right? Like even within the ERL system, they're not really relevant. They're not that good when it comes to
Hmm.
like level of play and viewership compared to some like the LFL and all the bigger ones. And then I went from that to EU Masters. That was already a shock. And then
Hmm.
like a month after EU Masters, there was the application for the LCK. I was like, well, can't hurt to try.
Give it a
And then
shot.
it felt to me like I like absolutely bombed every part of it, which turned out not to be true,
No,
because
no, not
here
at
we
all.
are a year later.
Yeah,
But that is something that that I have unrealistic standards of how I think I should perform,
very
and then
true. Yeah.
those don't really adhere to how it's perceived generally.
No,
So
yeah,
yeah, here we are.
definitely made a good impression on everybody that was involved in the audition process. So here you are, as you mentioned, and yeah, I mean, you were talking a little bit about how you were a fan and you were watching, and you really wanted to even come out to Korea for watching it, as well as getting your degree, kind of like two birds with one stone. So
Yeah,
obviously, you kind of had that perspective from the outside looking in, and wondering what it must have been like being on the inside, being one of the casters or being one of the
yeah.
staff, right? So now you're kind of behind the scenes, right? You've seen behind the curtain and you've kind of experienced it for a year. So like, what is the most interesting difference you would say, like being a caster now compared to like in the past, just watching the streams and like watching as a fan, like now you've seen what goes on behind the scenes, you've met a bunch of the pro players and stuff like that. So like, what do you feel like is the most kind of interesting, maybe something people wouldn't expect to experience, or I don't know, but just anything you
Yeah, I
might
know
have
what you
thought.
mean.
Yeah.
It's both very different from what I expected, and there's also it's fundamentally not that different from casting, like doing
Hmm.
bedroom casts to doing casts on the ERL level. So I think the main difference is that I love the LCK, right? Like I went to Korea to go and watch
Yeah.
it. Um and I'd watched it like on and off, obviously, because I was studying and I also dabbled in other esports, but like I watched it on and off for 8 years. And to be on it still feels very, very weird because I'm not really like I've watched it so much that like being on the other end of that is really weird. But then the moment that the game actually starts, there's not really a difference with any
Yeah.
like, and this is kind of funny because I've been really nervous like before summer finals and before the first LCK cast and
Of
the first
course.
online one.
Yeah.
But then the moment the game actually starts, like it just kind of goes away because you've casted like hundreds and thousands of hours of gameplay. In that regard, it's not that different. And also I thought that I'd have more of a emotional payoff of hey, I've realized my dreams, I've made it to the LCK. Like
Hmm.
this has been the goal for so long. But that never really happened.
Still waiting
Yeah, I was
for
still
the
waiting for
emotional
that.
payoff.
Still waiting for that to kick in. Um, which is
Hmm.
quite funny, right? Because I'd imagine like the moment, because when I heard it, like I just lost my mind, right?
Yeah.
Like my girlfriend was there at the time as well, and she was like, "Yeah, obviously, you dummy," because she kind of saw it coming. I did
Yeah.
not. I was like, "What?" Um, but outside of that, like the expected feeling and it being somewhat similar, but also at the same time, it being kind of uh like the experience of walking into Lorpak for the first time was insane, right? Like
Hmm.
that's that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Um, as a cast, I think more so than even as an enthusiastic viewer like me, you care so much more about all the players and all the orgs. And of course, you have orgs that you like more, that align more with what you like, and players that you prefer. Um, and that doesn't really it only empowers your broadcast, right? Like when Atlas casts Deft, for example, like you can hear
Yeah.
the you can hear the joy when he does well,
Yeah.
and I think that's really, really fun. um but I ended up caring way more about so many like teams and players that as a casual like as a semi-casual slash pretty serious viewer over like those years, you still don't get, because you don't watch everything all the time, right? Because that's just not feasible.
Yeah.
And then as a caster, you're so much more intimately involved with the whole process, which makes it way more fun, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear you say that, because it's definitely something that I've experienced myself, but never quite heard it put into words, in that way. So pretty cool to hear it coming from you as well, coming over to the LCK. So, obviously you are from the Netherlands. I would assume that most people watching would know that, but just in case they don't, you're from the Netherlands. You've lived in a lot of different places in your life, including coming over to Korea for study abroad, but now you're actually living here. So this must have been like a really huge change in your life, right? Personally, even outside of just as a caster, right? Because you need to, I assume, move away from your family. You need to move to a totally new country permanently, essentially, or at least semi-permanently. So
Yeah.
how was that whole process, and like how has your daily life changed compared to what it used to be like now?
Very stressful, obviously, moving to the other end of the world in a pandemic. Not great. Didn't
Forgot
get to
about
have a
that.
goodbye party.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know. Who would have thought? Didn't get to have a goodbye party, which also was very unfortunate. I haven't seen my girlfriend in 8 months, but she's coming over soon, so that's great.
Good.
Haven't seen
Good
my
news.
family, and obviously you can I think it's still better than it used to be because you can video call and whatnot.
Mhm.
But I would have gone back if not for COVID, probably already. Even with how well received I've been by like you and all the other casters, and just in general, I don't want to say rough, but like exhausting experience because there's so many little things that you just need to take care of, like moving in, getting all your documents. Started learning the language as well, right? Because Korea is a country where I think you'll be fine not speaking Korean, but I feel
Mhm.
like you lost out on so much of the experience. So I really wanted to do that as well.
Yeah.
And then also just, yeah, the practicalities of everything that you need to do and how much harder it is because you don't speak the language. So I
Mhm.
ask you to help me with
Yeah,
like
such
little
as
things all the
buying a
time.
lamp.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
Like,
Or
yeah,
the
no,
TV behind you.
yes.
Like,
Yeah, I would not have had that TV without Valdes. So that part's great. Um, I think in that regard, it also really helped me that I'd been to Korea before because
mhm,
it gave everything a weird sense of nostalgia, right? Because it's been 5 years when I came here, 5 years since I was here. But I had such a great time here, and I really, really loved it. And I think without that, it would have been way harder.
mhm,
I think the fact that I had already like pretty strong ties to the place, and I've also seen some of like my old classmates
mhm.
when they were visiting here, and all of that really, really helped. I think without that, it would have been like really, really hard. And now it
Yeah.
was still had a lot of upsides. I mean, obviously, like after what has been like 9 months, we're getting decently settled, and we're starting the language, and we're starting to build a social circle. So it's getting better and better. And in terms of day to day, I mean, I have more viewers when I stream. I still play the same
Nice.
amount of video games. I probably play more board games because I got you guys hooked.
Hell yeah.
Uh, the only thing that is missing right now is I need to like find a good exercise routine because with COVID, like I like to
Mm,
box, and that's kind of not great. And then obviously also again it's like language barrier, right? For a lot of sports, that's kind of
mhm.
a problem. So I've just been like running, but that's not as fun. So that's the biggest change I think. Outside of that, yeah, eat more Korean food. I make it sometimes at home when I lived in the Netherlands because I live close to the Asian supermarket, but it's much better here. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So Mal, we've asked you a lot about your personal life, your personal experiences, but one question about League of Legends before we go, because of course it kind of makes sense in this environment with you and I. So, what are your impressions after watching the LCK and other regions, and why is the LCK going to bring home another title?
I actually think they will. I have a lot of faith in Dumont specifically. Um, I think that if we look at the most likely victors at Worlds, it is EDG, FPX, or Dumont, right? And I'm an LCK fan, so I'm going to say Dumont. I think
Yeah.
these other two teams are really good as well. But I think Dumont are really building momentum at the right time. They've looked the best they've looked like the entire year. Because I was not that big a fan of Dumont in spring. I was pretty outspoken. I was the only one who was, I want to say brave or dumb. I think it's a thin line enough to predict Genji.
Hmm.
Didn't didn't age very well, but we went for that regardless. and I think they've really cleaned up the gameplay. I think they look so much better than they have all year, and I think that in T1 we also have a really good like second in command basically, and obviously Gen G is our actual second seed, but Gen G, I think, will look a lot better than they did during our summer playoffs. I think they really had a like kind of a rough period. I think they would have worked through that. But even when Gen G is playing well, I expect T1 to make a deep run over them. Don't think any of the LCS teams are going to be really relevant. I think Mad Lions is really good. Fnatic seems very flippy, both positively and negatively. Broke doesn't impress me. So I think
Yeah.
it's gonna end up being between like the LPL teams and then T1, Dom1, and maybe Mad.
Yeah, I would mostly agree. I think maybe Fnatic will have some luck because Whippo plays so much Trundle. But other than that,
It's important.
yeah,
It's important.
picking the best champion in the game. Yeah, I like that Trundle. But yeah, I guess that's gonna do it for this kind of interview slash casual talk that we had. I hope everybody that was watching enjoyed what Mao had to say about some of his personal experiences and his thoughts about Worlds coming up. So, Mao, before we go, anything you want to say? Any shout outs to anyone?
Yeah, I'd implore you to listen to Run Away With Me by Carly Rae Jepsen. That's all.
Okay. Well, on that note, guys, we're going to end the interview there. So thank you, Chronicler, for joining me today. And I hope you guys enjoyed WCG Close-up episode 11. And we'll see you on the next one for more of WCG Close-up.